Recently, the grand jury's decision in the Breonna Taylor case was announced, and of course, we knew what to expect. Well, the ones that had the facts did. We knew the officer shooting was justified, plain and simple. That didn't stop protests and riots, and that night there were riots, a lot of arrests, and 2 officers were shot. The following night, protesters were back at it again, many more arrested, and this time it included Representative Attica Scott and her daughter, Attica Scott. So let's discuss how these riots continue to happen and what happens moving forward. Now, before we begin the video, I'd like to ask you to like, comment, and share. If this is your first time here at Logic Over Emotion, consider hitting that subscribe button. We love to have you as part of the channel because here we bring the hard truth while others are busy virtue signaling. Now, up until this point, I haven't made a video about Breonna Taylor. And to add a little context to the video, let's quickly discuss the facts of the case Cliff Note style. The officers had a no-knock warrant to act on. However, they did indeed knock and identify themselves. There is a witness that corroborates that. Breonna and her boyfriend were both in the hallway. Breonna wasn't asleep in the bed, so that's a lie. Her boyfriend fired through a closed door, hitting one of the officers, and they returned fire, and Breonna was unfortunately killed. Now, one of the officers, Brett Hankinson, was brought up on 3 counts of wanton endangerment for firing into a neighboring apartment occupied by 3 people, one of who was a pregnant woman, and another was her child. None of the Louisville officers were indicted for firing shots after Taylor's boyfriend opened fire on them. And it's still unclear if the 3rd cop that was indicted will actually face any time. That's still to be determined, of course. Now, it's clear that these riots are no longer about justice. The Louisville Police Department declared a state of emergency, and the Louisville mayor, Greg Fisher, announced a curfew ahead of the announcement of the grand jury's decision. Attica Scott, a Democrat of course, introduced the Breonna's law bill in August in an attempt to end no-knock warrants. Now, obviously ending no-knock warrants will clearly do more harm than good. And this is a terrible example to use as they didn't even perform it as a no-knock warrant. Anyways, Scott has been charged with felony first-degree rioting as well as misdemeanor unlawful assembly and failure to disperse. Naturally, her attorney, Ted Schaus, makes claim that the allegations are outrageous. What it seems is that they are associating her with an incident where where library windows were broken and a flare thrown inside in an attempt to start a fire. So at this point, it's a bit vague on whether or not there is a specific evidence on what her exact involvement was. Now, I'd like to address the rumor going around regarding the church incident there. So at some point, the police ended up squaring off with a group of rioters outside of the First Unitarian Church on 4th Street. After the curfew went into effect, church leaders allowed the crowd to remain outside on the church's property. Now, contrary to the rumors on social media, at no time were the police waiting for a decision from legal about whether or not they can storm the property. No arrests were made for being on church property, and no National Guard was deployed to address this issue. The police allowed the group to leave the property to get to their vehicles and to go home. So just wanted to clear that up since we know there's a lot of incorrect information out there. And, you know, to this point, they are still making claims of peaceful protesting. Yeah, they said Attica Scott was peacefully protesting. This is my thing. If you're peacefully protesting, what is the need to be out past curfew? Obviously, all of the rioters come out at night. So why be out during that time? You're just being caught up in that nonsense. Speaking of nonsense, of course, the riots were staged. This has already been confirmed. There was a U-Haul truck parked and handing out signs of weapons as soon as the announcement was made. Not to mention there were stacked bricks at random places, as we have seen before. So this isn't new, but we know that this is being organized and carried out by leftist radicals. I don't think we will see an end to these riots until they crack down harder on these criminals and figure out who is funding these grown children. They are always ready, no matter where it is. They have money, they have transportation. Whoever is supporting them, needs to be brought up on charges. So look, the Breonna Taylor case is a tragedy. But instead of blaming the officers involved, I think, we have to put the blame where the blame is due, and that's with the boyfriend. Now, to be frank, there, have been more information that has come out regarding this. The boyfriend, he did come out and give a statement. And so right now, all we have corroborating the story of the cops, because apparently there's no body cam footage, is a single witness saying that they notified. Now, I was also, I also read that they served this warrant at like 2 a.m. in a very bad part of town. So it's very likely, if the officers didn't, announce themselves, that they, could have justifiably been shot at. And, I watched a Hodge Twins video on this earlier, and they made a really good point that, if you live in a bad part of town and, something like that happens at 2 a.m., there's a high chance that you would, to take a shot. And the other thing is, if you knew it was the cops, right, why would you only take one shot? Right? Why would you only take one shot? Like, if you knew it was the cops, what's the point in shooting? Because after, as far as the information goes, after the cops shot back, there was no more fire from inside the house out to the police. So I'm kind of, the facts of this case are kind of muddled. And the fact that, he legally owned a handgun, which you can only do if you're not a felon. So clearly he wasn't caught up in anything, selling drugs or anything. We know that was her prior boyfriend or her ex-boyfriend. So, but all I can say is this: based on the facts that they have, I think they made the right call. However, we should be willing to kind of open up our understanding of what could have happened. Because like I said, all we have is a corroborating witness. And to further state, if you have 3 white cops going into a black neighborhood or a neighborhood with a lot of minorities in it at 2 a.m. to serve a no-knock warrant, you got to have body cams. I don't, for the life of me, understand that how in this day and age you go into a situation like that and you do not have the body cams. But anyway, that's going to be it for this one. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Did they get it right on this one? Or is this one of the few where, we could have a justified shooting on the other side? Like I said, I don't go down the party line thing. I don't support cops just because they're cops. I don't support minorities just because they're minorities. I look at all the information. So I'd love to get a discussion going. But anyway, that's going to be it for this one. Make sure you guys comment, like, and subscribe, and you guys take care.